Welcome to the Self-Help Book Club podcast. We read self-help books and see if they help. I'm your host, Kelly Bachman, and this week's book is The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma by Dr. Bessel Kolk. Kolk defines trauma not as the story of something that happened back then, but the current imprint of that pain, horror, and fear living inside the individual. So not the event, but the feelings around the event. Whether we deal with these feelings or not, Kolk says that they live on in the body. Hence the title of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Kolk goes into a lot of examples of trauma, medical trauma, war trauma, trauma from sexual abuse. So trigger warning for all of that, this book can be very hard to read. It was for me. I think my body was keeping the score a little too much. The body was yelling scoreboard every time Kolk shared another painful anecdote. Content warning also for today's episode. Today's guest is Dylan Adler, a great comedian who you've probably seen on CBS and in your phone. Dylan and I wrote a musical comedy hour about healing from rape trauma called Rape Victims Are Horny Too. We don't go into detail on what happened to us, but sometimes we say the word rape, which is an intense and sometimes triggering word. Just saying it now, I don't like it. But Dylan and I have fun in our show. It was kind of meant to be like a slumber party for survivors, laughing together about our healing journeys. In the show, we cover classic songs and make them about healing. For example, I'm every victim, we've all been raped. Or, do you remember the 21st night of September? Yeah, my body still remembers. Try to repress it every night. You get the idea. It was while we were working on our comedy album that Dylan actually suggested that I read this book. And it took me extremely long to get through because for years I would open one page, feel emotionally destroyed, and then put it away. The book talks a lot about how trauma affects the brain, the body, and the nervous system, explaining how traumatic experiences can reshape the way we think, feel, and even function physically, often leading to dissociation, anxiety, chronic pain, and emotional numbness. Even saying that sentence now, my body is like, stop yelling at me, I don't want to talk about this. But the book explores a lot of different ways to heal from trauma beyond talking, like somatic therapies, yoga, breathwork, movement, or expressive arts, dance, theater, writing, comedy podcast, or neurofeedback and EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. I would describe that one as kind of like science hypnosis. This was the best part of the book for me as someone who was burned out on talk therapy. Learning about other types of therapy was super helpful for me and for Dylan, who talks about that in today's episode. Since reading this book, I've seen Dr. Kolk speak in a workshop where he said that he started his career in trauma by doing acid in the 60s. Cool guy alert. He said he dodged the draft to Vietnam, we love it, and then he got interested in how to treat veterans with PTSD. Kolk researched a lot and tried a lot of different methods for treatment, gathering a lot of patient stories along the way. But as he worked, he realized that therapists like himself could sometimes be inclined to give people corrective experiences when sometimes that's not the best way for them to heal. At one point in the book, actually, he recalls being confronted about his personal need to know his patients' trauma stories, maybe as a way to solve his own personal issues. At this point, I was like, yeah, I agree with the guys talking to you. Dang, stop telling me the stories. I don't like hearing them. But through conversations like this, Kolk learned the value of treatments like EMDR, which allow patients to heal from trauma without talking about it, observing their experiences in a new way. He said he realized a therapist can be a guide, but people have to get in touch with themselves. I think this book did help me get in touch with myself, The examples were tough, but some of them also really helped me to understand more about my own experience. Another person who has helped me is Adler, one of my favorite comedians and greatest friends in the world.
And now we're gonna start the show. Here's Dylan Adler, but first here's Dylan Adler and me singing a song from our show. It starts with a trigger warning.
I will trigger you. Humor is how I deal with pain.
Could I be any more traumatized?
Chandler. I discovered it because a lot of people I know were reading it, and I saw someone on Instagram story literally be like, "This book was really helpful for me," and I'm like, "Oh, I think I'm working through some trauma stuff. Maybe this could be helpful book for me as well." So I read it, I believe, during the pandemic. Yes, it was during the pandemic that I read the book, and it really opened my view about trauma and different healing modalities and different healing techniques from it, and a very inspiring and I think hopeful book when it comes to I just learned a lot, and I feel like I got a different perspective on different ways healing is possible.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you at before you read the book versus after?
When I read the book, I was definitely in a place, in that time, it was definitely like difficult, and I didn't like any physical contact with any people. Like, I hated hugs or even when people were like near me. So that's kind of like a little where my like trauma and physical boundary stuff was. But I think that after I read the book, it wasn't like oh my God, I'm all better, but it gave me a little bit of a good roadmap to be like, okay, this is a way that people heal from trauma, like EMDR stuff. And here are other ways that people have overcome and survived things. And yeah, the stories were very inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. You said EMDR. Is this book why you did EMDR?
This book is definitely a reason why I started the EMDR, because I think before the book I was doing like more talk therapy, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is what we do for trauma, but I didn't realize it's like, no, when it comes to trauma, like EMDR is like the effective, like is the highly most recommended treatment, because you could talk all you want, but everything is stored in the body, and that's kind of how you heal it, because you go into the feelings in the body. And so that's what inspired me to do EMDR.
Self-help book club. There's a quote I wanted to read from the book because it reminded me of our work we've done together. And it says, traumatized people are afraid of conflict. They fear losing control and ending up on the losing side once again. Conflict is central to theater. Inner conflicts, interpersonal conflicts, family conflicts, social conflicts, and their consequences. Trauma is about trying to forget, hiding how scared, enraged, or helpless you are. Theater is about finding ways of telling the truth and conveying deep truths to your audience. This requires pushing through blockages to discover your own truth, exploring and examining your own internal experience so that it can emerge in your voice and body on stage.
Oh, that is a beautiful quote. And I found that being able to write a sexy tune about, feeling horny and wanting touch, but also not wanting it too, and feeling afraid, and like conveying those like complicated feelings in like a comedy song together with someone else who feels the same, like, oh, that was so healing. And,
the song that we wrote was called Tell me I'm hot, but don't fucking touch me.
Yeah.
Which at this point I will cut to so that the listeners can hear.
Mm-hmm.
When I show up in the club, I wanna kiss and that's it. Haven't fucked in 2 years, boys, I'm really tight. If you touch my butt, I will end your life.
One time I went to a sex party, I could not touch anybody.
I am triggered as I sing, gonna go to the bathroom and listen to Enya. Tell me I'm hot and don't fucking touch me. Tell me I'm hot and don't fucking touch me. I'm scared and horny. Tell me I'm hot, why don't you love me?
After we wrote that song, I remember that literally within minutes, like we had this meeting where we played the song together and we loved it and we ended up talking for hours.
Yeah.
And we were talking about trauma, which normally like wipes me out. Normally if I talk to someone about painful stuff, I walk away like feeling depleted and feeling like I was too vulnerable. But instead, I felt excited. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was awesome.
I know, me too, because it was like, it felt creative. It was like, you know, we were working together on this thing that felt like, I don't know, that that we both felt like it came out of a place of like, you know, real like truth and pain, but also it was like, it made us both laugh and it made us both like feel like, okay, this is kind of a bop. And, you know, like to work on something like that was really,
it was
really
healing.
Really healing.
I remember literally within days, we had a whole hour written.
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to both perform half hours together on the show at Caveat.
That's right.
And then instead it was like, what if we just were on stage together the whole time?
That's right.
And it was so fun. But also, you know, I confess at that time, I was kind of hiding behind you a little bit because you were this like super magnetic, like to me you seemed like what's the word, like invincible, you know? To me you seemed like
definitely not the case, but
to me you seemed like you had like nice. A force field of joy around you. Where everywhere we went, you know, sometimes people were kind of being mean to me at that time about my survivor status.
Yeah.
How else to call it.
I know
people were being mean.
People were being mean and
but
weird.
So I felt really uncomfortable going to an open mic and working on like a joke about rape. But with you, I felt like I could go anywhere and it'd be like, you can't say anything. I'm with Dylan.
I felt the same being with you, Kelly, because like, I mean, I would like when I was doing my rape jokes by myself, it's like I would feel like, you know, it's scary and also like, you know, you're just like, but the, you know, fact of stand-up is like you're up there alone and it's just kind of like, it can be an isolating feeling, but that's how the feeling I felt writing things with you and then performing them together with you, it's like I felt even like more like strong and protected because it's like this is something that we both feel. This is something that we both feel and experience.
Absolutely.
And this is something that we both like and that makes us laugh.
And yeah, we laughed together and even when we did bomb, which we did bomb.
Oh, yeah.
I know. It's like people listening are like, we're shocked. How did you bomb? How did you bomb with an hour of rape jokes? I don't understand.
They're like, it's impossible. It's good.
But I really felt like if I bombed on my own with that stuff, I would feel really defeated. And I would be like, maybe they're right. Maybe I do suck. But with you, I was like, you can say I suck, but you can't say Dylan sucks. Because Dylan is awesome and hilarious.
I feel the same. I was like, when it was like even together, if it happened, I'm like, no, Kelly is the most brilliant person. And what we wrote made us laugh so hard. So it's like, you're not going to. Yeah.
We would kind of walk away like laughing.
Yeah.
Like, I remember that time we went to Popeyes and we had like the worst night ever, just like bombing our asses off. Yeah. And then we like ran into someone who was like triggering to me.
Yeah. And then
we were like, we just got to take this.
And then we weren't allowed on one of the.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't let us up.
Yeah, it was rough. rough.
But then I felt like every time we had a night like that, we would only become that much closer and come up with more material, and it felt like there was a real community in our shared struggle with this stuff that I hadn't really known before.
Me too. And like it was when working on it together, because it's I guess definitely a part of myself that and to be quite honest, still sometimes do lock away, and that I don't always, want to show and share with people, even like close people I'm very close with, out of fear of like not wanting to feel like I don't want to bum anyone out, or like feel like I'm like burdening anyone, or like or feel like, sometimes my emotions feel too out of control for this. But to be able to give that part a spotlight and give that part a voice that isn't just during therapy, that's like with my best friend on stage in front of people, like it was like that was just a indescribable feeling. And I miss that.
I miss it too. It was it was cathartic to do the show, but then also just our friendship through that time and the way we grew and the challenges we faced and how we would overcome them.
Yeah.
I felt like I grew a lot stronger through that. You were talking about not liking to be touched. You where everyone thinks you're like this sexy, fun gay, but you like
fun
want
gay
6
who
feet at all
loves,
times.
spank. Yes, I love to spank me, bitch. Like.
And
they
people
think
assume that about you and literally run up to you. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they will like not touch me, and I actually really want to be hugged. They'll be like, "Sorry, Kelly, I respect you." And they're like, "Dylan,"
and I'm like, "Get away from me!"
I'm like, "No, spank me."
Yeah, exactly.
Self-help book club. And we ended up coming up with a signal because we would trigger each other on stage, but you can't really do anything about it on stage. On stage, if you're performing alone and you get triggered, you can pivot and be like, "Oh, I'm going to not talk about rape anymore. Like, this is hard and I want to move on." But when you're doing an hour about rape with someone who's waiting for your cue to say their next line,
exactly,
then it's hard to be like, "This song is really painful for me. Let's move on."
Let's move along.
And we ended up coming up with this signal where we like put our hands like this. It looks like a dance move, but really we're being like, "No."
Yeah.
And I remember we started doing it in our regular life a lot when we were triggered as well.
Yes.
To kind of skip the conversation of going back and forth through the whole unpacking of it all, and skipping to the part of, grounding ourselves and knowing that we love each other. And I think that's what this book kind of gets to a lot.
Yeah,
is like
100%.
Kolk talks about, he used to like ask everyone what their trauma was and go all the way into it. And he unfortunately described it to all of us as well. And it was like, oh my God, this is hard to read.
Yes.
But then in the end, he says, like, he realized you don't need all that every time. Sometimes you can just ground yourself physically and do what you need to do, which I found we started doing a lot with the listening to children's songs before we go on stage.
Yeah.
Doing art crafts together.
Yeah.
Doing like something physical.
I mean, it's great. It's funny because like you caught me at a time where I am feeling like a little bit triggered, and it's the tool. Like I didn't have the tools to deal with it, and before I would kind of drink it away, or just try to push it, shove it down. But now I now try to practice those tools that we have, like listening to music that calmed me as a kid. Also, like practicing not shutting it down, but letting the feeling be however big it might be, and knowing that it's not going to last forever and it's going to transmute into something else, and that the part is there for a reason, and I shouldn't try to shut any of them up or shut any of them down. And so Yeah, those are things I learned from doing like in the inner children, internal family system stuff.
That's beautiful. That's interesting you brought up you used to drink it away, because I know when I met you, you pretty much immediately were getting sober. I never saw this side of you that would go out and, repress things in that way.
Yeah.
What was that transformation like to go from drinking to expressing yourself in other ways?
Yeah, no, because when we met, it was when we were working on this together, it honestly made me feel so like it was so cathartic and also illuminating for me that it was like, I think I recognized, I'm like, oh, drinking actually doesn't add to my life. And it doesn't really, the way I was doing it, it was really for the intention to like mask up pain and parts. And so I think in like working together, it just made it all the more clear to me.
Well, I'm glad that you've come so far in your healing journey. And I know, and I'm so proud of, the result of both of us coming together and making our show.
Absolutely.
Where we cover lots of classic songs like
how will I know if he gets to fuck me?
He asked permission
And I said yes. Bare minimum of respecting my body. Now he's my God, I will kill for him. Beautiful.
Yeah. And the show, we cover a lot of songs, but we try to kind of talk about the different things that were bothering us at the time in our dating lives and going to therapy and all the things we were trying and they just didn't seem to work. And actually, since reading this book, I wish that we had one more song on the show, but a parody I thought of, which was, the song "Let the Body Set the Floor." I was thinking it would be funny if we were like, "Let the body keep the score. Let the body keep the score."
That's a good one.
But, that will have to be on Rape Victims Are Horny 2.
2.
2 Rape, 2 Furious.
It'll be like Brat Deluxe. It's Brat, but just 3 different songs.
Self-help book club.
We were definitely like writing about things we were dealing with in the moment. We hadn't like really processed a lot of stuff, but we were writing about it. And I think, I also don't think you have to wait until you feel 100% on the other side to start writing or feel like you can try to transform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same goes for reading this book, I think. Like, when I first started reading this, I thought it was too triggering for me to read.
Yeah.
But then, I paced myself with it. And page by page, I found there was some helpful stuff in here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the whole journey and feeling you never stop really getting triggered by stuff.
Yes. And I honestly, sometimes it's like I had to remind myself. I literally was yesterday. I had an experience that was triggering, and I really felt like I was how we described in the show, like
Trauma
Mia, back to square one. Oh my God, here we go.
Here we go again.
And it feels sometimes as though it's like I've lost all my progress, and was everything for naught? I'm back in the dark place, and that I telling myself that it's that it can feel that way, but everything that you've all the work that you put in for healing yourself and the tools you give yourself, that never is lost, that never goes away.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to forget when you're in the thick of it that dust will settle and that you'll feel okay again.
Right. It's like healing doesn't mean that you never have to heal again, but having the tools means it gets easier the next time. You have
Yes,
to heal.
it gets easier the next time. And like all the work that you've done is not, I can't iterate. It's like it's never lost. You're never starting from scratch again. It may feel that way.
Right.
Because your emotions can sometimes, how I feel sometimes out of control, but no, it's your progress is never gone.
Right. Because you don't go back to how you were before, because how you were before was someone who didn't have these tools.
Yep,
So,
100%.
like, whatever happens, you always know that you can pull out your resourcing that you've done, your grounding work you've done, the somatic healing you've done, the EMDR, whatever you learned from, whatever therapist from years ago. All those little pieces, they're there for you, and they become easier and easier to find as you're carrying this stuff.
Exactly.
And most of all, you can always stream Rape Victims Are Horny Too, which
And most importantly,
everyone should do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry.
We're sorry.
But is there any words that you have?
I would say that it's very easy to feel like, and how I felt for a while is that healing is not possible, but it 1000% is. And it's so possible to feel like worlds better. And, there was a while where I felt like, oh my God, I'm doing all this shit. What the hell is it all for? Because sometimes but really keep with it, and it'll be okay. I promise.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful sentiment. And I'm really grateful to know you. Grateful for all of our time working together.
Yeah.
And I know that because I knew
You.
I have been changed for good. Go see Wicked in theaters.
That's right.
Self-help book club.